Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you some thoughts around what the 21st century postdoc looks like. Although many of you are at different stages, what this talk represents is the journey, and so we hope it will be meaningful to each of you. Michelle and I will be sharing this talk, and the agenda will have me setting the scene and commenting on the preparation of a career in research. Michelle will then talk about developing important skill sets during your PhD and giving you a few examples of what's happened to a few of our students. Finally, we have a short wrap-up before taking questions. Great medicine comes from defying groupthink. So don't be boring. Think outside the square. Robin Warren and Barry Marshall, our Nobel laureates, had this crazy idea that gastric ulcers were caused by bacteria rather than too much acid. They had this hypothesis because on a few biopsies, they saw some bacteria. To defeat the dogma of the day, which at the time was over 100 years old and included significant bowel and gastric operations, they had to design studies to demonstrate the importance of helicobacteria and show that by treating this, they could resolve the condition. At his PhD completion seminar, the professor of surgery said to Barry Marshall, "If you are right, then all of surgery is wrong." Barry Marshall's reply was, "I'm going all the way with this one, Prof." And the whole room burst out laughing. The rest is history. So research in this century should not be just doing last century's work, but better. The world is looking for transformative work, things that have an impact. I believe this can only come from a commitment to innovate or disrupt in everything we do. To be part of this revolution, we all have to be contemporary. As my daughters once said to me, "Get with it, Dad." This means learning about computers, the power of communication, its media, understanding what society thinks, the imperatives of government and institutions. Know the world that we are living in and be part of it. So what are the times that we are now living in? Some describe this era as the fourth industrial revolution. You'll see that 100 years separated the first from the second from the third industrial revolutions. However, the fourth came upon us within 30 years, and I dare say it will be as short, if not shorter, between now and the next one. These industrial revolutions will be what defines the paradigms in which our world will function and exist. On that note, it would be interesting to challenge ourselves as to what the next revolution will be like. Here are some of the key disruptors and innovations that define how our world functions now. It is highly likely that what your research is studying will intersect with something on this page. To make your research connect with the various initiatives of government, funding bodies, universities, it is a good idea to have a look at how you can narrate your connection into the ethos of the day. What I've learned from 30 years of doing research is what sells is impact. People are looking for the value proposition. Funding in most cases comes from taxpayer dollars, so the funder is interested less in what you are doing and more in how what you are doing will make things better for society. Grant panels are made up of people who simply don't understand what we are doing in detail, but they certainly understand the argument about how things can be made better, so design your work to always answer, so what? At the very least, talk about who or what your target is, how big is the problem, what the cost to the community is, and how your research will change these things. When I look at successful teams, I see a number of repeating characteristics. They are often multidisciplinary. They are armed with specific expertise that allows them to complete their mission. They have a clear focus on what their target is, and their activities range from discovery to translation, but they have been able to link these two elements of research. Having these seem to help them succeed in grant funding, and together, all these lead to a profile that feeds the system they are in. Be part of groups like this. So with all this in mind, what you should plan on is a PhD that unlocks the door to a whole variety of jobs. It is no longer a foregone conclusion that once you've done a PhD, that you're committed to stay in universities or hospitals. But rather, this skill should equip you to integrate with a whole series of other roles which your PhD should now help to inform. For example, with a PhD, you may have a role in any of the positions noted here. At your stage now, you are either just embarking on or along your journey. One of the fundamental questions is, what do you want to study? What is the basis of your research? From my experience, there are four main categories of people who approach me for advice. Those who know what they want to do and are chasing it. For these people, keep going. 2, those who know the area they want to research, but not the specific topic. For these people, spend time talking to potential supervisors. 3, others who don't know the area, but really like the research group or have been influenced by someone from that research group or referred to that research group by someone else. For this group, spend some time talking to the people from the group to find out, is everything what people say about the research true or not? 4, those who want a taste of research but not sure what they want to do or how much they want to do it. If you're in this group, start small and work with other like-minded people in research networks such as SOMA. Overall, it is important that you spend time reflecting on why you are doing research and what you hope to get out of it, as this will help direct your journey. And remember, not all journeys are the same. The next important thing is to find the right supervisor. Here are some important things to consider. Make sure they have a good track record of supervision. Ask around. Speak to people from their department or their students. Ask them about other students they have supervised. Find out how many of these students have actually completed their PhD. Find out how your supervisor thinks the PhD will help you and what their role is in facilitating this. Be clear about how much time they will invest in you. Gardens grow if they have a good and caring gardener. Make sure you understand what their research program is about. Does it make sense, or is it just a madhouse? What connections does your supervisor have, as these connections are often the special sauce that makes the magic happen both during and after your degree. Do your due diligence. It is also important to find out as much as you can about the resources that are available to you. Find out about the research team. Who will you be working with? There should be more than one supervisor. Each supervisor is there for a purpose. What supports does the environment have for you as a researcher, a student, a person? How will you be funded? What will you need to do to get funding? Are there any value adds? It is critical to know who the administrative team are that will be managing your candidature. They are often the first port of call if there are issues. Get a feel about the environment. Meet with the people. Ask yourself if this is the sort of place you want to be spending the next 3 or more years in. What can be done to improve your experience?
Okay, so for the next part of this presentation, I'll briefly run through some of the skills you can develop throughout your PhD that will help launch a successful postdoctoral career, whichever path you might choose to take. In the 21st century, a successful postdoctoral career is measured not only on research outputs, but on research impact. And while the actual research you undertake is central to successfully completing your PhD, in of itself, it won't necessarily result in impact nor prepare you for a postdoctoral career. Important and complementary skills you should seek to acquire during your PhD include networking, leadership, and professional skills. And now I thought I'd just go through and share some activities you can participate in order to acquire these skills. In terms of academic activities, contemporary research is multidisciplinary, requires mixed methods approaches, and is translational. And this is true for both fundamental, clinical, and public health research. Your supervisory team, therefore, needs to have the complementary skill sets to cover the breadth of your research, and you will need to work closely with your principal supervisor to ensure your team is fit for purpose. I would also encourage people to consider undertaking complementary coursework, which universities do offer often without cost. But think about this early in your journey, as the further into your PhD you get, the less time you might have to undertake this type of activity. It's important to draw upon your university's resources and services, And while not all universities have clear messaging about the resources and services they offer to research higher degree students, these resources do exist in spades. I did a quick search of the University of Melbourne website, for example, and uncovered a vast array of resources and services, including online learning modules and an array of workshops that you can participate in. At the very least, I would encourage you to consider undertaking some workshops in research integrity and ethics training, thesis and manuscript writing, and presentation skills. In terms of networking and engagement activities, although the research you undertake throughout your PhD should be your own original work, research does require teamwork, and your ability to network, collaborate, and engage with stakeholders will be central to your successful postdoctoral career. Your stakeholders include end users, consumers, your community, and of course other researchers. Attending and presenting at conferences will get your research noticed and is a great way to meet and network. And I would encourage you to engage with consumers and community throughout your PhD. And a great way to do this is through reaching out to advocacy groups that are relevant to your field of research. At our centre, we've introduced a consumer buddy program for our PhD students, where students are buddied with an interested consumer to whom they can pitch their work. In terms of other engagement activities, teaching is a great way to develop your communication skills. And I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the importance of developing a social media profile. And there are a range of formal and informal forums with which you can do this. If you would like to collaborate with an expert in your field, you can always apply for seed funding and invite them onto the application. Now, in terms of leadership activities, I've divided this into academic leadership and professional leadership. And most postdoctoral researchers' roles will require that you lead a team or supervise others. And all postdoctoral fellowship applications will require examples of your leadership activities. And there are 4 activities you can undertake that will demonstrate leadership on any future fellowship job application that should be readily available for you to do. You can mentor someone who is junior to you. You can contribute to peer review of journal articles. You can join a committee and you can get involved in conference organising. And in terms of professional activities to develop your leadership, postdoctoral fellowship applications as well as applications for academic promotion require examples of professional leadership. And some of these examples include contributing to your institutional activities through committees and working groups. You can supervise students and you can nominate yourself or your colleagues for an award. You can also join and contribute to professional societies in your field, and I would strongly encourage engaging a mentor or career development sponsor early in your PhD journey to try and develop a strategy for your professional development. So if you can demonstrate your participation in some of the activities or many of the activities that I've outlined in the previous 4 slides, you will enhance your competitive for a postdoctoral position. And for the next few slides, I've actually prepared some data on students who have completed their PhD in the Department of Surgery at St Vincent's since I completed mine back in 2009. And while I've remained in the same department in a research-focused role, others have taken very different but interesting and rewarding journeys. Since I completed my PhD, there have been 47 research higher degree completions throughout our department, and 39 of these have completed a PhD. And this actually represents an estimated 156 research training years. So I broadly grouped these 39 PhDs into 4 career pathways: academia, industry, clinical, or those that hold hybrid careers. I was easily able to find public profiles on 36 of the 39 PhDs who had completed since 2009, and 1/3 were in exclusively or predominantly academic roles. 10 held hybrid positions, with the clinical role being the dominant role. 7 held industry positions, 6 held purely clinical positions, although 3 of these were trainees, and so they'd recently completed their PhDs and were undertaking traineeships, and therefore may intersect back in with academia at some point. And as I said, 3 were wasn't able to trace where their career had gone. Of the 10 who held what I called hybrid careers, mostly the hybrid was clinician academic, although one clinician held a clinician/industry-based role. For clinical careers, they were quite varied as well, with an anatomical pathologist, plastic surgeon and neurologist, and 3 were orthopaedic trainees. In terms of industry careers, they were quite varied. 3 had gone into work for pharma companies in varying roles. 1 held a senior position in private health. 2 were working for clinical trials companies in various roles, and 1 person was involved in what I would call the tech industry. For the 1/3 who pursued a career in research, they are now working in a variety of roles across national and international institutions, and I've just outlined them here on this slide. And of note, there were only 3, or 8% of this cohort, who had undertaken a PhD in our department that continued a career actually at the University of Melbourne. So I guess my take-home message is that undertaking a 21st century PhD will enrich your career prospects and open up many exciting career opportunities both within and outside of academia for the majority who embark on this journey. And now I'll just hand back to Peter for a final wrap-up.
In wrapping up, you need to think about how you will stay energized through your journey. So be passionate about your work. If you are passionate, it will interest others. Talk to people about your work. Get them to ask you questions, as sometimes these questions can light a spark of inquiry, confirm your direction, or make you consider detours. Give your work some urgency. Build in timelines and goals, as these help to keep you focused and also allow you to assess your own progress. The thing that inspires me about what I do each day is that I believe what I do is meaningful. So do the things that are important to you. Finally, don't be shy of competition. Competition is always there. Embrace it. Think of it as a coach to help make you better, even if it is a little at a time. People often ask what motivates me. Aside from doing what is important to me, I'm inspired by John F. Kennedy's words. We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. The challenge of space is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. You see, it is the sort of challenge that provokes us to bring out the best that we have in ourselves. For me, the best future comes from giving our best. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.